I would like to use this opportunity to inquire about a few recent developments on the European continent, and would like to have your perspective on this. First and foremost, there was an interesting speech by French President Emmanuel Macron when he proposed to discuss, in a way that was pretty surprising to Russian diplomacy actually, the perspective for European strategic autonomy. What is the fundamental underlying logic inside of it?
Well, I think the underlying structural reason why Macron, and not only Macron, because you hear actually in different shades the same kind of argument being made by European institutions, by Germany, by Italy, by Spain, I mean literally by pretty much all member states, is very much connected with the theme, the opening theme of this conference, meaning the way in which the world is changing. Now, clearly the European project was born in a particular historical context, and that historical context was one within which the European Union existed first during the Cold War and then after the Cold War within a US-led security system. And I think it's important, obviously, to recognize it because that security system provided many rights and freedoms to Europeans. But it's clear that the world is changing. Now, I think that from a European standpoint, what is it that we're after? Well, we're after our security. We know that the United States continues to be a primary partner and ally in this respect, but we also see the fact that not necessarily today or tomorrow, but maybe in 10, 20 or 30 years' time, we will not be able to rely exclusively on a US security guarantee. And therefore, in order to provide for our own security, and this is a crucially important point, in order to ensure that our transatlantic partnership remains a strong and resilient one, we need to start assuming more responsibility. Now, this starts obviously with the area of security and defense, and this is why we talk about strategic autonomy, because clearly this is the area in which Europeans have been most lacking over the years, precisely because we lived under that US security umbrella. But it is not limited to security and defense. And this is why what's interesting about the debate in Europe at the moment is that, yes, there is a debate about strategic autonomy, but there is a much broader debate about autonomy and European autonomy in the world. One can define it in different ways, European sovereignty, European autonomy, but what is it that this means? This basically means that in a world in which we not only have the United States and China and Russia and India, but we also have Google and Amazon and Huawei and so on and so forth, Europeans need to be able to have a seat at that table, whether we're talking about international organizations, whether we're talking about different unilateral or multilateral contexts, whether we're talking about exactly, the way in which we engage with major tech giants. And in order to do that, we need to have weight, we need to have size, and therefore we need to be integrated, and we need to assume greater responsibility. I mean, this is why, for instance, if we make the connection between the debate about European security and defense and the Iran nuclear deal, there is a connection there. We care about the Iran nuclear deal in and of itself because it's a key instance of non-proliferation and Middle East security and so on and so forth. But we also care about it because we need to be able to know and to show to ourselves first and foremost, as well as obviously to our partners, that we are able to live up to our own agreements and rules and laws. Because ultimately, if you take the meaning of autonomy, the Greek etymology of the word autonomos, it basically means the ability of the self to live up to its own domestic, and in our case, European and international rules and norms.